From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi. With Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea term limited and running for governor, State Representative Gregg Amore is asking voters to choose him as the next Secretary of State, and he is our guest this week on Newsmakers. Representative, it's good to have you in the program.
Happy to be here.
Why do you want to be Secretary of State?
I think my skill set fits nicely with the duties of the Secretary of State's office. I've always considered the Secretary of State's office to be the civic engagement officer for the state. And as a history teacher and civics teacher for 26 years in the East Providence school system, that's a nice fit. You know, when I was in 8th grade, I was part of Project Insight, where the Secretary of State's office ran a week-long program to engage students. And from that point on, I worked with Secretary of State Inman.
I was going to ask you who the Secretary of State was.
Well, no, not then, and I can't remember who it was then, but I did work with Inman as a teacher in similar programs, and I always thought that office fits my skill set. And then when you add to that the fact that I've been on the House Finance Committee, I've been the small business chair, when you combine those things, I think it's a perfect fit for my skill set.
What would your top priority be if you are elected?
Yeah, it would be civic engagement. I think Secretary Gorbea has done an excellent job modernizing the office, making it user-friendly. My focus would be civic engagement, get into communities, get into schools, get onto college campuses and engage folks in the process, how they can access government, what it means to vote. I've said this a number of times. Our voting should be celebrated. All right? It should be a celebratory day. It should be a national holiday. And I'd like to really focus on bringing voting to the same level as those other non-holidays that we have. Cinco de Mayo, Valentine's Day, Halloween. We don't celebrate voting like we should. We are the greatest democracy in the world. It is the reason we have been able to survive this long. And I know we're in troubled times now, but we've been in troubled times before. And I think that's really where I would focus. That, and I think we really have to be willing to go to people and give them as much information as we can about how voting works, how the system works, how the elections are conducted, how they're certified, so that the misinformation doesn't swallow up the real information. And that's really important at this time.
Well, we've heard a lot of concerns from some of our viewers, particularly Republican-leaning viewers, about voting by mail. There's a lack of trust about the security of that process, although I will say I've not seen any evidence of any widespread fraud or anything like that in Rhode Island in the last election. Do you think more needs to be done to ensure the security of vote by mail, especially as it becomes more popular? Or do you just think it's a messaging problem?
I think it's both, right? So I think voting by mail will become more and more secure as the technology, and I think it's very secure now, extremely secure. But as the technology improves, it'll become more secure. For the last general election, we instituted technology for signature verification, separation of the ballots. Those are things that will continue to improve. And I think signature verification goes a long way to securing that part of the electoral process. Prior to signature verification only, we were using 2 signatures that could not be verified, or a notary that could, but a notary is difficult for some people to access. So I think it'll become more secure, even though there has not been a problem with voting security. I tell people all the time, 2019 and prior, red states took full advantage of voting by mail in very similar ways that we do so here in Rhode Island. It was never an issue until the election of 2020, when the standard bearer for the Republican Party decided that it was fraudulent in some way, without any evidence. If you look at the southern states, especially Louisiana, Florida, they have always used vote by mail and early voting, and they've done it successfully, and it has always benefited Republican voters.
And let me ask you also about early in-person voting. You mentioned that. I was at your kickoff at East Providence High yesterday, and you mentioned that you support early in-person voting. There's always a debate over what the schedule should be. What do you think is the ideal amount of early in-person voting that should be allowed for Rhode Island?
Yeah, I think 2 weeks is probably a good number. We saw in South Carolina that Joe Biden probably would not have won the South Carolina primary had there been early voting for a long period of time, because the momentum shifted after that. So I think a 2-week period is probably reasonable, give or take a couple of days, because I don't think you want events to shift and not have people be able to reflect that shift in their voting.
One other top policy question, I'll get back to Tim. I remember we covered the last open race for Secretary of State together, 2014. Yep. Rhode Island's then new voter ID law was a big topic of conversation, very controversial among Democrats. I would say that's died down a bit, and I'm curious what you think today of Rhode Island's voter ID law.
I think it's been effective as far as effectiveness goes in regard to Rhode Island voter ID. What I mean by that is I don't think anybody has been disenfranchised because of the voter ID policy in Rhode Island, and in large part that goes to the fact that you can cast a provisional ballot in Rhode Island. We allow various forms of ID. We allow student ID, collegiate student ID. So I think we set up a system that was not restrictive. Some of the voter ID laws in other states that have been knocked down by courts, state courts and federal courts, were very restrictive. Some of them required people to pull out $40 and pay for a state ID. That's unacceptable. There should be a safe and secure way to vote where we know the person that is voting is that person they say they are. But I will say that I think that the voter ID narrative has shifted, even with Democrats. When you look at the polling of Democrats, most Democrats, high 60%, believe there should be some form of ID. But what's happened with the narrative is we've shifted from no ID, which Democrats were there when we passed the ID in Rhode Island, to fair IDs. And when you listen to Stacey Abrams speak, when you listen to Senator Warnock speak, and these are two champions of voting rights, they talk about being unopposed to voter ID, just making sure that there are options and that it's a fair process.
Another voting question for you. Boston just held a preliminary election for mayor, and as you know, this is not a primary. It's the two top vote getters, regardless of what the party is. And Maine has something called ranked choice voting. I'm wondering if you're open to either of those here in Rhode Island.
So ranked choice voting, I think the problem with ranked choice voting, we saw it in New York City, is that it was confusing, right? The results took a long time to come in. Even some of the candidates could not explain how the process worked. When that's the case, then the integrity of the election is questioned, and we don't want to do that, especially in this atmosphere. In regard to open primaries, I'm very open to the idea of open primaries. I think we've come to a point in our nation's history where there are so many people who are unaffiliated. They don't want to vote in a Democratic primary, they don't want to vote in a Republican primary, but they would engage in an open primary, and I also think that leads to moderation. The candidates that come out of an open primary will have a tendency to be more moderate. Doesn't mean that the party system is not evolved. You're going to have strong Democrats and strong Republicans run. I'm a strong Democrat. But I think there is a place, and we do it in Rhode Island in local races, nonpartisan local races. We have open primaries. And I think there's some merit to that.
You lauded Secretary of State Gorbea for her civic engagement. What would you do different?
I think there's an opportunity, as I said, to get into schools again, high schools again. We're doing that.
Let me reframe the question.
Sure.
What would you do differently than Secretary Gorbea did in her tenure?
Overall?
Overall.
Yeah, I think it revolves around civic engagement and being more open to being places and talking about how the system works, talking about voter registration, talking about accessing voting, letting people know how their government works. I have people tell me that they voted for me in the last election. I know they don't live in my district. I say thank you, I appreciate that, but I think there's a confusion that needs to be, and again, people have busy lives. So messaging, getting into communities, talking about what it means. Look, I think that we know there's no evidence of voter fraud in the last election, widespread voter fraud, but we don't talk about it beyond that. We say there's no evidence, and then we stop. We don't say things like, how did the Republican down ballot senators, members of the House, how did they win when President Trump did not win in those states? It's the same ballot. And we never expand upon that and talk about that. And I think that's important because those are facts that can't be altered. You can't say the election was fraudulent on the top of the ballot and not fraudulent on the bottom. And I don't see any Republican legislators saying that their election was fraudulent.
Previous secretaries of state have been tough on the legislature sometimes. Secretary Gorbea, I would say, helped trigger the downfall of Rep. John Carnevale at the time when she wouldn't put him on the ballot because of the residency questions. Jim Langevin, when he was secretary, chastised the assembly for secrecy around open meetings. Look, I was at your kickoff. You had Speaker Mattiello there. You had Speaker Shikarchi there. A million lawmakers on hand. How can voters trust you if you get in there to be a check on your former colleagues?
Well, I think one of the things about the people who are on my host committee and the people who were there yesterday is they come from a diverse background. It's a broad political spectrum. And I think one of the reasons for that is that I think I appeal to people as a decent person, first of all, a fair person, trustworthy. I built relationships, and I think people understand that, you know, for the most part in my time in the General Assembly, I have worked with people to do what is right. And in the circumstances that you talk about, I'll do what's right. I'll do what the law requires. And I think those people that were there yesterday understand that. I think that's one of the reasons I have broad support from a whole host of people on the political spectrum.
I've done a fair amount of reporting on the state archives. One might say too much reporting on the state archives. Look, the situation right now is much better. Secretary Gorbea moved it out of a building that the state rented out that was in a flood zone. I was there. There were some pumps running around the clock. It smelled awful. It's in now a new building, climate controlled. All of that. You can see video of the new facility on the screen right now. But this is also a temporary location where the state is renting once again from Joe Paolino here. She tried to get a permanent facility, couldn't make it happen. Is this a priority for you at all, or is it just not worth the political capital?
No, I think it's a priority because, you know, for Rhode Island, an original 13 colony, an original 13 state, this is a tourist attraction for us. I mean, as a guy that loves museums, a history teacher, that whenever I go to D.C., I go to the National Archives because I can't get enough of it. I think that's a draw. And so, yeah, I will continue to fight for a space that's delegated to the archives. I think it's a resource that we need to, again, celebrate, and I think it's something that I will make a priority.
Well, I have to ask you something about your current job in the House. You serve on the House Finance Committee. We've been doing a lot of reporting on this ILO Group contract, that the bidding process was very unusual, $5 million, questions about the work that was done. I'm just curious, first of all, as someone who looks at the state budget closely, your reaction so far to what we've learned about it. What do you think? Yeah,
it deserves scrutiny, and it sounds like it's going to get scrutiny from both the House and the Senate. I think even the administration has admitted that the RFP process was sloppy. And you know, my view is that there are ways that our school districts, as somebody who spends all his day in a school district, there are ways that our school districts need to be supported that are associated with COVID-19. There's great learning loss. There's social emotional loss that we've suffered. There are supports needed in our schools. So there is a place for an outside consultant group or education experts to come in and serve our districts. I just don't know what this contract does, and I think most people don't know what this does at this point, and we need to get those answers, and we'd like to hear from the commissioner. We'd like to hear from some leaders of school districts about what is being offered as a service under this contract. But I agree. I think there should be scrutiny. I think there should be scrutiny on all of these type of contracts. You know, you've both covered the contracts with the casino. There was a great deal of scrutiny, multiple hearings. I sat through all of them, hours upon hours of hearings. That's good. That's transparency. That's what we should be looking for.
At your announcement was former Senate President William Irons, who stepped down in 2004 under mounting pressure over questions about his insurance clients and his actions as a lawmaker. Do you have any concerns about what message that might send to voters?
Bill Irons grew up, I grew up next to Bill Irons. So my family and Bill Irons have been close since I can remember. My mom was a friend of his mom's, best friends. So there's not a political connection so much as there is a familial connection. I lost both my parents in the past 8 years, my mom last year. Those folks from that street that I mentioned yesterday, the Algonquin Road family, they helped raise me. He's one of those people. So our connection is really through being a neighbor and a friend, not through the political process.
With 30 seconds left, real quick, the House passed a bill that would allow public bodies to hold meetings online, but the Senate didn't act on that legislation. Do you think public bodies should be able to hold online meetings permanently going forward?
Yes. It just provides more access to the public, and I think that's what we're looking for in total.
State Rep Gregg Amore, he's running for Secretary of State. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, is the real estate market in Rhode Island red hot, or is winter coming? Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi. Our guests on the second half, Shannon Buss. She's the past president of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, and David Salvatore. He's the government affairs director at the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. I should say, Most people will recognize you as Providence City Councilman David Salvatore, but that's not what we're here to talk to you about today. You're wearing a different hat.
It's your day job.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
All right, we're gonna do a little wordplay here. I want to do using one word or a short phrase. Rhode Island's housing market is blank. Shannon.
Chaotic.
Chaotic. David.
Opportunistic.
Opportunistic. All right. Well, look. For those of us who were homeowners during the housing bubble that popped and dramatically deflated for several years, starting around 2006, there's anxiety that inevitable cliff is around the corner. What would you say to that, Shannon?
I think we came into this for different reasons, and the predictions are not predicting that we're going to have a similar market. David, I don't know.
Oh, well, you guys seeing it soften at all at this point?
I can give you a practitioner's view.
Yeah.
It's very property specific. There are some properties and some areas that we're seeing a little more leeway with, and others are just as demanding. So it's hard to say. We are starting for the first time in a while to see price reductions. Any price reductions,
yeah, right.
Some longer days on market. And so I would say, I use the word chaotic, going from extreme demand into just a regular seller's market.
And Shannon, sticking with you, just this morning, the Realtors put out the monthly report, which I always read avidly when you all put it out. The median price last month in Rhode Island for a single-family home, almost $400,000. Astonishing to me as someone who's covered this for almost 15 years now.
Yes.
But closings down and inventory down, I believe they said.
The last 2 months, the amount of closings have been down. So it's really helped us to level off the lack of inventory.
So do you think some of what we're seeing is people who watched the spring frenzy maybe said, oh, I'm gonna sell, if I can get that, I'm going to sell my house, and now we're going to see more properties come on?
I think it's a combination of a few things. I think, the sensitivity to COVID, there was a percentage of the population that just was not comfortable with traffic in their home that are reconsidering. Now, of course, we're revisiting all of this right now, so it'll be interesting to see. But I think that's part of it. And I do think, we're seeing a definite change of activity in the field.
Councilman, you're serving on 2 commissions on low-income and moderate-income housing, land use. But look, from your perspective, from a policy perspective, what would be a top legislative priority you would like to see happen just right now? If you could snap your fingers and make it happen.
So first, let me just say that we are thrilled that Speaker Shekarchi is laser focused on housing. He has made that his priority from the beginning of his leadership tenure, and we're excited to work with him. As far as one solution to solve the housing problem, there isn't a single solution.
I wasn't saying what's one solution for to solve the housing problem, but what would be a top priority?
I think we need to look at zoning. I think we need to look at zoning in Rhode Island, and the fact that there are 39 different ways of zoning in Rhode Island becomes problematic at times. And I get the fact that, and I appreciate the fact that neighborhoods and localities want to preserve their character, which we fully support. However, the amount of red tape that a developer has to go through to get a shovel in the ground is extremely frustrating at times. And I think that lends to the conversation around the number of units where we're falling short.
And there are members of zoning boards watching this program right now, or people in neighborhoods that they hear you and they say, "Oh, great, the legislation, the General Assembly is going to force our hands."
I wouldn't say force their hands. I mean, first, we hear from members and prospective developers all of the time that sometimes these zoning boards and other commissions can't obtain a quorum. And that's problematic in terms
Which they
of
did
commencing.
just change that, right? Didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. So commencing a project has become very difficult in Rhode Island. But again, we appreciate the fact that we want to preserve the character of our neighborhoods, but it shouldn't take as long as it does for a developer to get in front of a zoning board and have to go through those multiple layers of approval prior to a shovel-ready project.
One question we hear sometimes, Shannon, is because we've been doing a lot of reporting on housing in recent years, is, people say, well, look, Rhode Island's dense, and that's why it's full, effectively, and there isn't room to build more houses. There's a place for that. When you look around with like a realtor's eye view as you drive around the state, do you think there's significant room to expand the housing supply, or what do you think of people who think, well, it's just full?
I think there's probably always opportunity. I sold 4 vacant land parcels last year, and here's the problem. The contractors cannot start the project for over a year.
Why? What happened?
Right? And modular housing shut down. Can't get the house here because, COVID shut everything down. So there are issues in the field that are either delaying projects or making it very difficult, not to mention the fact that lumber is up 40%, right? But
in those
in
cases, though, is
areas,
your vacant? That's interesting. Your vacant land that you sold. Is it what David said? Is it quorum stuff at the local level that's
lumber,
held back, or is it lumber?
No, it's cost. And sometimes, now with certain clients, it's either no longer possible, or they just can't get it done. So that's holding up inventory, right? Because people are moving up into homes.
Shannon, one of the report that Ted referenced that came out on Thursday, a number that jumped out to me is the median sales price of multifamily homes also saw an all-time high last month, rising to $383,000. That's a 23% increase. Who is buying them? Who are buying these homes?
Believe it or not, first-time home buyers.
Okay.
They like the idea of income-generating properties, right?
And is it a way for them to break into the market in some
Certainly,
ways?
yeah. But they're competing against investors. The cost of rentals is very competitive, and the supply of them is very competitive. I think investors see that, and so they're starting to enter the market again. And the average sales price of multis is right behind single families, and I'll tell you, it's up over 23% from this time last year.
And David, when you mentioned Speaker Shekarchi, he has talked a lot about housing. He's a land use lawyer himself, so he certainly knows the issue well. Your job is to talk to a lot of lawmakers, sort of get the temperature, see what can be done. What's your current read on, Shekarchi's talking about it, and frankly, if the Speaker's talking about it, that matters quite a lot, but the appetite to do maybe something bold around getting more housing production around, because it does just seem to me as a business reporter, it's just at some point a supply and demand problem, and I don't see where the prices come back down if there's not houses added to the stock.
Sure, and just based on conversations that I've had with legislators, they are excited about this platform around housing and potentially changing some land use laws. Our land use laws in Rhode Island haven't been examined in over 30 years. That's problematic, where other states are examining them on a maybe annual basis or every 10 years. So in the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act Commission, we know what the gap is on the low and moderate income side. It's in the tens of thousands. We've known that for many years. What do we do now to create targets and goals on an annual basis to close that gap? Because what we're finding in the field is by waiting, that number continues to grow, and we're preventing prospective home buyers who right now are on the low and moderate income housing side from making that next leap to home ownership, and we're not freeing up those available units that are considered affordable for those Rhode Islanders who desperately need them.
One question for you, this might fit both your hats. How do you feel about housing production in the capital city right now? Certainly we've seen quite a few apartment buildings going up, everything, but there is also, we hear from colleagues who find rents are still very high and going up in Providence, even with these new units coming on. Where do you think the city is on it?
Well, I think from the city's perspective, we are adding more units, but it is still very difficult to, at times, build a 2 or 3 family home in the capital city in Providence. I think there's times when residents will come out in opposition to a project that could potentially hold up a 2-family or a 3-family project. So, I think from the city's perspective, we need to lead. We know what's happening in the urban core, but what's happening in Cranston, what's happening in Warwick, and some of the mid-sized cities and towns across Rhode Island, where there could be an opportunity to generate more housing and provide families with more opportunities with places to live.
Shannon, we have just about over a minute left here, and there are people watching, or their kids, their parents of kids that are thinking of buying or selling a home. What's your top advice to people who are thinking of either buying or selling?
You have to be prepared. You have to have your ducks in a row. You have to be willing and able to act quickly. And you should be consulting with a realtor who can advise you.
I said she'd say that.
Good for you, though.
Thank you. But you should, because you need
Why? Yeah, why? Apart from it's your business,
you
what will
need
they
a
get?
consultation so that you're not making decisions on the fly. You're going in
Doing
as an
comps.
educated consumer. Absolutely. You know what you're saying yes to, and you know what the outcome looks like that you're asking for, right? No surprises, and hopefully no regrets.
Did you warn any? I'm curious. During the frenzy of the spring, as Tim said, only 30 seconds
Sure.
left. Did you warn any buyers? I don't think you should buy this one now that it's gone up, $25,000 over asking.
What I like to do is put it all on the table. My job is to be honest with you so you can make the best decisions for yourself.
All right, we got to go real quick. David, tiny home legislation last
Yes.
year. We don't have time to talk about it, but
Okay.
did that pass?
It didn't, but we are looking at it in the 2 commissions that have commenced, and we're looking forward to passage, introduction and passage in next
Homes
year's session.
150 to 400 square feet. It's
They'll end up on
fascinating.
HGTV on that show.
Keep an eye on it. David, Salvatore, Shannon, Bus, thanks so much for joining
you.
us
Thank
on
you
the
both.
program. If you missed Gregg Amore, he's running for Secretary of State. He was on the first half. You can watch it on WPRI.com. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.